The early decision acceptance rate was a lot higher than the regular decision, probably double. And I had this weird intuition. Hey everybody, it's Catherine. As you can see, I am wearing a different shirt. That is because my camera did not record this section of the video, even though I was talking in front of my camera. It wasn't doing anything, so now I have to redo it. But I knew you guys would really want this section because a lot of you have been stressing about essays and really just hate essays, and people freak out about that. It's really just the biggest part of the college application, I guess. It's besides the things that you kind of do before, like your grades and your testing and everything, the actual application is mainly just made up of the essays and the supplements you write. And then I'll also be talking about interviews in this segment. So catch up on the first 3 parts if you haven't, but otherwise I'll be giving you tips on the following 2 things now. So honestly, I don't have that many recommendations for the writing portion, just because I love writing. I am an English nerd, self-proclaimed, no embarrassment about that at all. I like grammar, I like prompts. It would be really hard for me to come up with something like a research paper if the teacher had no guidelines. I really like things that have something you can write off of. That's why supplements are so great. And also, even in the Common App essay, you have 5 prompts, so you still get, even though they're not really direct prompts, you still can basically write out whatever you want. It still gives you something to go off of, and that's really helpful. But so for me, these were a lot of fun. For you, it might not be the case. You should value these essays though, because it's a really good opportunity to reflect on who you are and just speak from the heart. First of all, in all of this, I really think that your voice needs to be the main thing that's present. I personally read a lot of autobiographies before my senior year, the summer of it. Not because I was training myself to write the essays, but just because I got back into reading more, and I just thought Mindy Kaling, Tina Fey. Amy Poehler's book is actually coming out in October, so check that out if you want some inspiration in the fall. But those autobiographies, since they were written by comedians and actresses, were really strong in their voice, and you could just immediately tell, reading the first page without knowing who wrote the book, it was Tina Fey or it was Mindy Kaling. And I mean, if you heard the audiobook, it was even stronger that you knew it was them writing. So really keep who you are in the paper. If you're sassy, let that show. I think it's way more fun to write a sassy paper. One of my prompts for UVA was to tweet or not to tweet, and I basically just went on a rant about why Twitter's great. Just speak about little funny moments. You don't have to make everything so deep and meaningful. Some of these things can be lighthearted. You can write an essay on why you tripped on the sidewalk and that made you realize who you are, versus an essay about how you got lost in a major city, which is kind of something that's common people write about. But you don't need something monumental. You can just write about tiny little quirks, and that way the aspect of who you are will really come through. But then again, if you're not funny, don't try to be funny. Don't contrive anything in these essays. But definitely don't leave the writing voice like you would in a formal essay for your English class. Don't leave it in that tone where you can't speak about I or you, or just kind of throw out the lessons. It's not an essay in the traditional sense where you have a thesis. So you can definitely don't write just a big chunk. Break it up into paragraphs based on if it's a chronological story, based on different parts. Or I mean, for me that was an innate skill, so I can't really voice how you should write these essays. But as far as structure, I can pretty safely say that whatever you feel is right is probably good. So as soon as the prompts come out, write. So you already know the 5 Common App prompts, so I would already be drafting different ideas, probably have maybe 2 to 3 to 5 even. Go through them, write out a couple points about what you want to say, discuss them with the people that wrote your rec letters or people that you really trust, adults, just see if they seem like a good representation of yourself. But yeah, as soon as those supplements come out in August, September, October, I want to say, you need to get on them. Writing for me is way less fun if I have to do it the night before something's due. So I always like to plan out and give myself time to really craft something that I love. And honestly, my Common App essay was not something I'm particularly proud of. I think it served me well. It really spoke to who I was. I would let others read it. I wasn't ashamed of it, but I think that could I have done better? I don't think so, but it wasn't something that I was gonna find this perfect jewel and be so super proud of it. And I hope that you guys can find something like that. But my supplements were really where I came through, and those 250, maybe 300 words, I could do a lot in those. So definitely my next tip is to be concise. Twitter actually weirdly helped me with this. A lot of times I'll write a tweet out and I'll have a great idea and I think it's the funniest thing ever. but then, you know, it says minus 30 characters and I have to revise it and figure out which words to put back in. And I really improved my writing from like junior to senior year, and one thing that really stuck out to my English teacher was that I was really concise and I didn't repeat myself. I could cut to the chase and not add extra fluff, and the fluff is gonna hurt you so badly in these hurt you so bad, that's English, in these essays. So really make sure that you are cutting things out that don't need to be there. You don't need 5 points to support. You don't even need, like, 3 might be too many. You don't need to create such long lists or anything. Figure out what words are the most powerful in the sentence and don't do any passive voice or anything like that. Really work on getting your point across in as few words as possible. So you need to revise these essays a lot. I definitely went through, I had so many supplements. You're going to have supplements for probably every school minus a few, and you need to go through, and I personally had typos on a few of the essays after I submitted, just because I hate rereading my writing so bad. I hate it. Like, I do not enjoy reading back through. I feel like every time I reread it, it just gets poorer and poorer, even though the actual essay doesn't really change. But you need to be on top of it and revise your stuff, especially before you send it in. And who can help you with that? Your English teacher, definitely. Your parents. I never showed my parents my essays just because I thought I was capable enough. I like to be independent. Since you're going to be independent in college, you shouldn't be relying on your parents too much, but definitely they know you well, so they can cut out stuff that they think like you don't really need. But I showed to my English teacher just a few of the essays that I needed a little bit of either content help or just structural help, or dealing with how to start the essay and conclude the essay. If you can start the essay with one killer sentence, that already puts them in a mindset where they're thinking that you're talented and you know what you're doing and you're going to put a lot of effort into the rest of the essay. So don't give up on just the beginning and say something stupid. Like, if the prompt is like, describe an extracurricular, don't just say, I work at the zoo. Like, do a sentence that's more fluid and graceful, gets to the point, because that is a waste of a sentence. I work at the zoo is a waste of a sentence. You can actually say what you do at the zoo. If you want me to post some of my essays, I'd be happy to do that, just so you could see some examples of how I answer some of the prompts. I can definitely do that, probably on Google Docs. But another one of my tips would be definitely to search around. Go on College Confidential, search on Google. Go to sites that you know people post their kind of essays. Sometimes I'll go to college Tumblrs and look at them. They're called Applers, and they're actually very helpful. I really enjoyed following some Applers on Tumblr during that experience. But reading through other people's responses, whether they were bad responses or they were mediocre or whatever, just helped me just automatically get a jump start on how to actually respond to the prompt. Because for some of them, you're really not sure if it says you can write 100 to 400 words. Should you write the 400 and show that you're doing everything, or keep it concise because you don't have that much to say about the, you know, unique prompt? There's no shame in looking around and getting some inspiration from others. When you do want people to look over your essays, don't give it to more than 3 people. Especially with your major essays, if you give it to more than 3 people, you're going to get a bit of different viewpoints. Like, some people might think that portion of the essay is weak. Some people might think that that portion is. So you need to make sure that you're staying on one track. You don't get confused by other people. So maybe 1 to 2 is good, 3 is okay, and then past that, you're just going to get too jumbled around with what you actually need to be writing about. There are going to be a few supplements that ask you, why Duke, you know, why USC, why Stanford? And those essays I think people tend to neglect. The really easy thing to do, not maybe easy, but it's easier than you would think, is just to research the school. Search through all those student clubs and organizations. Find specific names of things you like and put those in. Really look at the program, look at the courses you're about to take, look at the professors. Find little things at the school that you really cannot get anywhere. You don't want to be talking about just, oh yeah, they're study abroad in Spain, because I can guarantee you almost every single one of the schools I looked at had a study abroad program in Spain. That's not something that they're going to say, wow, well, she really wants to go here. They're just going to think, okay, she wants to go to college, but like Duke specifically or Stanford specifically doesn't really care. For example, like Northeastern, even though they didn't have a supplement and they didn't ask why Northeastern, they have an amazing co-op program. And I'm sure everyone that applies there knows about the co-op program, but if you can look for specific internships across the country that you would think you would benefit from and include those and look at the professors that can kind of guide you around, I think that is just a way more comprehensive answer to that prompt and way more useful than just saying, I like the school because it has spirit, because blah, blah, blah. You can definitely say those kind of just blanket qualitative things, but you want to back them up with things that really speak to you. And even in those why this school essay, they're still kind of asking who you are. Through every one of these essays, you should be saying something about yourself. If one of the essays is, who was your mentor, who do you look up to, if you could speak to one person in the world, who would it be? That essay you're gonna want to talk about, you know, your grandpa or Ira Glass, who is who I would have talked about. You're gonna want to talk about them, but in the end, who you choose should reflect more upon you than that person. So in those, like in every single essay, you should be talking about yourself. So if you're saying, I want to speak to my grandpa, say the things that you connect with him, and say ways that he could impact you as well as things that he's done. So in the why this school essay, you should be saying, I love the Women in Leadership Club because they have a sector that directly deals with fashion branding in the Chicago area, or something like that. And you say, okay, well, I'm on YouTube and I do fashion stuff, so it'd be awesome to connect that back to an actual internship opportunity. So you should always be reflecting on what you want and who you are. Some of the stuff you're going to hear from college representatives is they tell you a lot, don't recycle essays, which is basically just using one essay for another. I think that's totally fine. I did that a little bit with some of the things were just kind of like, why do you want to go to business school? So I could use the main points in my kind of opener that I had for a bunch of different schools. Make sure that you change the name of the school. This never happened for me because I never like directly copy and pasted. But if you're talking about Urbana-Champaign in one school and then talking about like, no, Harvard, another, you don't want to be switching the names. Like, you don't want to be writing about Urbana-Champaign for Harvard supplement. Like, if you directly copy and paste, delete that name and replace it. Please, please, please submit your supplements like 2 days before the college app is actually due. If it says January 1st, get that in December 30th. The Common App will crash. I can tell you this definitely. It will crash. And if you think you're immune to that, that's fine, but it will freak you out if it's the night of and it's due that night and you're trying to submit it and it crashes. You do not want to have that burden on your shoulder if you actually did apply or not. You don't want to have your app in a different pile than the rest, but however it works, just don't concern yourself with that. Really make it a priority to get your app in on time. And then when you're actually writing the prompts, don't put them into the Common App. Save it on a Word document, because I've had it before where even if it was the final draft of the thing I wrote and I just put it in the Common App and I was ready to submit the next day, I looked at it again and it wasn't there. And I ended up contacting the customer service and they got it back for me, but still, have it all saved on Word, click save, don't let anything crash, because one of my biggest pet peeves as a writer is if I think of something and then I cannot like get it in the same format. So if I write something and then I have to rewrite it and I cannot think of the exact way I wanted to word it before, like that just really, really bothers me. So stay on top of it. I actually got in a Twitter war the night the Common App crashed this year and was basically just telling this kid, like, he was really, really mad the Common App crashed, and I was like, you guys, they told you this would happen, like this is gonna happen. Why are you on Twitter instead of figuring out your problem? And it was really funny, honestly. It was fun to sass him out, and I have no problem with like doing that kind of stuff on social media, because in the end it was his problem, and like he might have been butthurt, but he was doing something stupid, so I was just letting him know that like, don't be mad at like Common App because you knew this was gonna happen. So I'll do the same for you guys too if you mess up. Don't worry, like Catherine will be on it to attack your butt if you're not on top of it. Okay, so next section would be after you're all finished submitting your writing, and even as you're submitting your writing, you'll get to the opportunity to do some interviews. And not every school offers interviews. Most of the time it'll be alumni interviews, so just you know, adults that graduated from the school will interview you and then kind of send a report back. And these kind of, you know, stress me out a little bit, but it's definitely a good experience to go through because you will be interviewing many more times in your life. As soon as they kind of announce whether they'll be doing it or not, book that as soon as possible. Right off the bat, if you're doing it the first few weeks it's out, that looks good on your part. Again, it is optional, but when they say optional, it's like kind of necessary. I did Carnegie Mellon, their interview was optional, and I didn't do it, and it was one school I didn't do. I ended up getting in still, but it was a little like I probably should have done that, but I didn't. It was just too late on my end, and I wasn't prepared. So don't think about it too much, but try to do it if you can. And then emailing the person once you realize who's going to be your interviewer. I will insert the screenshot of what I sent my interviewer one time, just so you can get a brief kind of just feeling for what the formality should be. And I think like after the email back, the person that interviews you is probably going to be less formal than you are when you're emailing. But you don't know that. That's not always the case. So always address them by a formal title. Don't just say, you know, hey, Jacob. And then dress conservatively. I definitely would not advise bearing any cleavage. Don't wear a short skirt. I wore a pretty long pencil skirt with just a nice cotton top and a blazer. And I think I was overdressed, but it was for Georgetown, and Georgetown has some attractive people, and they always look nice, so I wanted to look kind of on my best. A dress works as well. No jeans, probably. Wearing what you wore to school is probably not good, so make sure you budget time in for changing if your if your interview is right after school. And then to practice for the interview, I did something that I don't know everyone did, but basically I just Googled the school's questions, and a lot of the time the exact questions came up. If you search like alumni interview for, you know, like Emory or something, like I think I found the exact draft. I helped some other friends prepare for interviews, and that really was just something either people post on like College Confidential what they sort of asked, or they'll post on Yahoo Answers or anything, but anything you can get your hands on, even if it's not the real questions, still go through and actually write down what you would respond with, think about some cute things to say, and then actually practice saying them in a professional and polite manner. So they're gonna say probably tell me about yourself, and even if they don't, it's good to have this down. So, you know, I would say my name's Catherine, I'm an enthusiastic and participatory student. I like to take my work seriously, but not myself seriously, and I'm definitely not afraid to ask any questions. And then you can say something like, you know, I'm from this city all my life, or I just moved here from here. Maybe a little bit about your family. What makes you want that school? You should have that answer prepared. And then anything you wrote in the supplement for the school, fair game for the interview. I don't think they'll have your you know, supplements in front of them, so if you want to say stuff you said about why you liked the school, or stuff you said about your extracurricular, go ahead and use that. The day of the interview, get there about 15 minutes earlier than the posted time that he or she said you should get there. And then I can be awkward at times, and I don't like dealing with the overthinking of, will I be awkward, how will I handle certain situations. So if you don't like the awkwardness of whether you should let them buy you a drink if you're at a coffee shop, or let them buy you, you know, a bagel or wherever you are, just go inside before and get yourself a cup of water. That way you can say when they come, like, oh, do you want anything to drink or to eat? And I'm just like, oh, I'm fine, I have water. So you're covered there, and that's what I did. And even if I wanted something to drink, I just didn't even risk it because I didn't want to feel awkward for them paying for me. Once you see them, shake his or her hand, say thank you for meeting with me, I appreciate you spending the time. Look excited, make eye contact with them, and don't rush through your answers. I tend to you can even tell with this video, I answer things really quickly. When I have a train of thought, I just go right on through and I don't even stop. Make sure they really listen to everything you're saying. And then hopefully your interview went well, and then follow up with a thank you email. Probably the day after is good. And if you end up going to that school, or you have any more questions about the school, definitely stay in contact with that person. They're probably connected to the school in some way, and it's good to have those sort of connections even before you're even on campus.